Hello, class of 2026. Dr. Richardson here. I'm very excited to be here with you. And for those of you who are virtual students, we are all one class. So happy to have everybody here today. So one of the things, before we get in the lesson, one of the things is some of you know, I love to think about traveling. Right now, I'm not at a place where I can travel, but I like to dream. I like to think about one day I want to travel. So I like to come up with different places. Like if I could go anywhere in the world, money didn't matter, nothing mattered, I could go. Where would I go? And lately I've been really interested in pyramids. I just think ancient cultures are fascinating. How they did this. I mean, they didn't have cranes and things, or we don't know what they had, but they didn't have a lot of the things that we have, but yet they figured out how to make it happen. So look behind me and see if you guys can recognize where I have traveled to today. So I'm going to give you a few seconds as a class to think about, where am I? If you guessed in the Yucatan Peninsula, a place called, there are actually, it's in Mexico, and there's actually 10 pyramids. I had no idea that there were that many pyramids in the Yucatan or in Mexico, near Mexico City and Cancun. I had no idea. I just knew about this one. I didn't know that there were so many others. So I'm learning a lot. There's lots of different things that we can learn when we think about and get outside our box and think about the whole world as a whole. Okay. Well, I'm starting something today called Toolbox Tuesday. And it's where I'm not able to get in the classroom as much as I would like. And there's different things that I want to teach you. And I just see this Tuesday intervention period as such an opportunity to get us to think about certain things. So calling this Toolbox Tuesday. And they're just going to be just 4 to 5 minute vignettes and just some things to think about and to discuss, because we all need to look at ourselves. We all need to look at things that we're doing and maybe how we could do them better. So today's topic is perception. So perception is basically how we view something. It is our viewpoint and it is ours. So think about, you're in a room. Let's just picture a classroom. You're sitting on the one side of the room and somebody else is sitting on the other side of the room. All right, you're both sitting there. You're in the same classroom. However, you have different perceptions because you're placed in different places in the classroom. Somebody walks in and they fall. You both see the incident, but you might see it differently because you're in a different vantage point or a different viewpoint. Neither one's wrong. It's just that you see it differently. The person over here might see just a person falling, and that's what they see. And then the person over here, they actually have a different viewpoint. So they saw the person trip. So they're like, hey, they tripped over this rug. So together, when we get all our perceptions and all of our viewpoints together, that's what makes us richer. So that's what today's lesson is. We're going to look at our own perceptions and look at it and see if we need to make any changes or adjustments. So I'm going to use an analogy for this next part of this vignette. And the analogy and I know you guys know that an analogy is a simple comparison between two things. And you are just simply wanting to use that analogy for explanation or for clarity. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to use an analogy. So here's the analogy. So let's imagine that you're out in the field and you're out there in the field and the sun, it's a beautiful day, blue skies, gorgeous day. And the sun is just doing its job, magnificent, big, huge, beautiful sun. So I want you guys to take a second and think about what good things the sun does for the earth, for the plants. I want you to take a second and think about it. Okay. All right, the sun, I think we can all agree that without the sun, we would not be in a good place at all. We need the sun, right? Well, you're still out there in the field and the sun's there and you happen to have a quarter in your hand. And so the quarter, you know, it's just this small little size. It's just the size of a quarter. Well, you take that quarter and you lift it up, and you're actually eclipsing this magnificent, huge sun by this small little quarter. And what I want you guys to think about is you are in school right now, right? Some of you, your perception or your viewpoint is you're virtual, you're remote students. Some of you are face to face. And what is the sun for you guys? That sun is called education. So I want you to think about for a second, what is education and what does education do for us? And it's like the sun, isn't it? It's like the sun. Without it, we're not going to grow. Our brains don't develop. Different things don't happen without education, without that learning process. It is necessary for our growth. But yet, we each sometimes will hold up this quarter, something small, and it will eclipse our purpose, the reason why we're here. So I want you guys to take a second and examine your own quarters. What are you doing right now that's eclipsing the bigger picture of education? What are you doing? What perceptions or false perceptions do you have? What are you focusing on? What small things are you focusing on instead of the big picture of education? Because this is hard. I need you guys to realize what you're going through right now. What we're all, your teachers, everybody, this is not easy. This is not school as normal. It's not school as usual. We have got to all take a collective breath, take a step back, ask ourselves what we're focusing on. Are we focusing on something that's temporary, that's going to move forward, that is it is currently blocking? Are we allowing it to block our greater purpose? And that's what I want to challenge you guys to think about. All right, so thank you for spending this time with me to do Toolbox Tuesday. I hope it's challenged you a little bit. This has really been, I've been reflecting on this for the past week, and it's really been challenging me to look at the greater purpose, to look at the reason why I'm here. And the reason why I'm here, and so many of your teachers and so many of your families, is we're just a part of the team. Our greater picture is we're a part of the team that helps you to become the best human that you can be. It's all right. Thank you for your attention and your time. Now we're going to move on to the lesson. So what I'm going to encourage you to do while I am pulling up the screen, what I'd like for you to do is just take a minute stretch break or whatever your teacher allows you to do. Just make sure you stay socially distanced, but just stretch, let's just take a breath. A couple of deep breathe, remember I taught you that last year where you breathe from your belly and you breathe in for 4, hold it, and then you release. Just do some different things to calm down. Okay. Okay, welcome back. One of the things, I don't know if you remember last year, but I talked to you a lot about our upstairs brain and our downstairs brain. And our upstairs brain, that's where we are developing as humans. That is where we're learning how to plan, organize, empathy, just different things like that. And our downstairs brain, that's where we do that fight, flight, or freeze. We're reacting to a situation instead of responding to a situation. One of the things that I want you to really develop this year, or it's going to develop within you, is called empathy. And empathy is just simply where you are starting to look at other people and you're starting to understand their viewpoint, their perception, what we just talked about earlier. That's what you're starting to do this year. And empathy is probably one of the most critical skills that you can gain. It is a highly employable skill. It is necessary for a lot of different jobs. And it's one that I really hope that we can help you to develop this year. So we're going to start out with what is harassment. And by the end of this lesson, guys, you're going to be able to define harassment, and you're going to be able to distinguish between bullying and harassment in your own words. So in this unit on recognizing bullying and harassment, we'll learn about the different types of harassment that middle school students commonly experience. Learning about this is important because everyone deserves respect. And we all share responsibility in making our school community safe, because we are together, whether we are virtual or we are face-to-face, we are all one school. So today we'll learn what harassment is, how to define it, and how it's different than bullying. So warm up. So I know all this week we have been spending time on procedures and different things like that, expectations. We do a lot with PBIS, and these are called norms. Another word for procedures is called norms. And norms are a way to help us feel safe. They're for our own good. They're for safety purposes. It's for protecting all groups of people. So I'm going to go over some class norms, and as you as a class would like to come up with some additional ones, maybe you can come up, now that you're in this hybrid community, maybe there's some class norms that we haven't thought about that would work for your class. So here's just some that show respect for others. Use I statements such as I feel, I think, or I believe. And I want to just take a pause here. There's two different types of statements. One is called an I statement, which is where you take a lot of responsibility. The other is a you statement. And you statements, when you use them, they're like, oh, they're horrible. They're like, you're stupid. You don't know anything. You're boring. Those are ones that start with you, which is somebody else, and it puts them on the defensive. They're meant to be hurtful, and they are very hurtful. So we don't want to use any of those. We only want to use I statements where you take responsibility for yourself. We want you to be kind. Give everyone a chance to speak. Encourage the remote students to speak up and to turn their cameras off, or however the teacher, but be respectful of everyone. And remember, we want to be very inclusive. Disagree respectfully. We're not all going to have the same viewpoint. Remember the classroom example. They saw things differently, but both of them were right. So you just have to learn to disagree, but you do it so respectfully. And don't interrupt. So those are some class norms. You guys might want to take a second and come up with some for your own class. You can pause the video. So during this unit, we are going to follow, and we're going to talk about sensitive topics that may bring up some strong emotions, guys, because people have experienced a lot of things and a lot of hurtful things. So we're going to follow these class norms. And if you need help or you want to talk, please reach out to me. Because this might stir up some different things. But remember, we want to respect the privacy of others. And if you guys ever experience harassment or bullying as defined in this presentation, need you to come and tell a trusted adult. Come, let me know, or Mr. Langston, or any one of your administrators know. All right, bullying versus harassment. How would you describe bullying in your own words? I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to come up with how would you describe bullying in your own words? And how would you describe harassment in your own words? What is the difference between the two? Well, I'm going to give you a definition, and the definition of bullying It's intentional, guys, that you mean to do it. You are being intentionally hurting someone. And it's physical. It could be a physical act, a verbal act, or some type of social aggression. It is something that is intentional. It's often repeated. Now, this is the thing that we get, difference between teasing and bullying. It is repeated. It happens every single day, or it happens every week, or it happens over time. It's something that is repeated, and that's where that harm comes in. And it occurs when there's a real or perceived power imbalance. Okay, so there's a power imbalance. Maybe the person that's doing the bullying is in this popular group, and the person they're picking on is in a different group. So that's a power imbalance. That's a social imbalance. That's an example. Harassment. Now, here's the big difference between harassment and bullying. Harassment is aggression against someone based on a real or perceived characteristic they have, such as their race, religion, sex, or gender. It's serious enough to create an unsafe environment, and it is a form of discrimination. So this is an aggression against someone based on their race, religion, sex, gender. And so that's the difference between harassment. Harassment is more of a discrimination. Bullying is an aggressive act that's repeated often. Okay, I just gave you this definition, but I wanted to also give you can see it visually, because some of us are visual learners. So just take a second. Maybe you want to copy these down in your notebooks. I think that would be a really good idea. So I'm going to pause the video. Teachers, I ask that you would pause the video here in case some of the students want to write this down. Here's some facts. Did you know 1 in 5 6th and 7th grade students reported seeing hate-related graffiti at school? That's 1 in 5. 1 in 3 Black students reported being harassed based on their race. More LGBTQ high school students reported having been cyberbullied and bullied on school property than non-LGBTQ students. These are things that are going on, and maybe you're not experiencing it, but others are. And this is where that empathy comes in, is start to see things from other people's perspective, other people's viewpoints. All right, we're going to give you an example. And in this example, I want you to, guys, as a class, to determine, is this bullying? Why or why not? Why wouldn't this be bullying? Or is this harassment? Why or why not? So Khadijah rides the bus to school every day. Lately, some older students have been laughing and saying mean things about her hijab, a traditional Muslim headscarf. So is this bullying? Why or why not? Or is this harassment? Why or why not? So I'll give you as a class time to discuss that. If you said this is harassment, you are correct, because the actions are aggressive and are based on Khadijah's perceived religion. These actions make the bus unsafe for her. It's also bullying, because the actions are intentional, aggressive, and they involve a power imbalance and have been repeated over time. So it's actually, in this scenario, it's actually both. All right, here's Kevin. It looks like Kevin's a baseball player. So Kevin, Tony, and Mac play on the same baseball team. In the last 3 games, Kevin was benched. It happens. People, Kevin was benched. Tony and Mac have since started teasing Kevin in the locker room and making rude jokes about him being benched. Is this bullying? Why or why not? Or is this harassment? Why or why not? I'll give you a few seconds before I reveal the answer, or you can pause the video. This is not harassment because the actions of his teammates weren't based on a perceived or real characteristic that Kevin has, but on his participation on the team. But it is bullying because the actions are intentional and aggressive, even though they may have said, oh, we were just teasing or we were kidding. No, their actions were intentional and aggressive, and they involve a power imbalance because the balance comes from Kevin was being benched. They were able to play. That's a power imbalance. And here's the biggest part. It was being repeated over time. And I hope everybody has a really good understanding of what these two words mean, because it's very important and Cobb County takes this very seriously. All right, so now we're going to wrap up. As a class, I want you to describe the difference between bullying and harassment in your own words. So I want you to take a second to do that. Okay, well, welcome back. All right, well, guys, I hope you have a phenomenal week as we are making it through day 2 of face-to-face and remote learning. And I hope you have a great rest of the week. Bye. Bye, class of 2026.